From 24 hours to then 100 days for US President Donald Trump, keeping his election promise of a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire is turning out to be an uphill task. A short while ago, second round of talks between Russia and Ukraine's delegations concluded. Turkey moderated the meeting that was held in Istanbul. So far, reports say that another round of prisoner exchange is on the cards, but there is still no clarity on how peace talks are going. Ukraine says it has proposed another round of talks before June ends and says that Russia has rejected unconditional ceasefire. But the meeting was preceded with a steep escalation in attacks from both sides, more so from Ukraine. On Sunday, Kiev claimed it destroyed Russian bombers worth billions of dollars in a large-scale drone assault on Russian soil. Russia hit Ukraine with more than 470 drones and 7 missiles overnight. It was the highest number of drone attacks that Moscow launched since the beginning of war in 2022. In the middle of the unprecedented escalation, talks appear to be at an impasse, and the US president's next move is unknown. Last week, Trump said in a media briefing that he will have an update on the ceasefire in 2 weeks. In his own words, Trump is waiting to find out if Russian President Vladimir Putin is serious about wanting peace.
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently, but it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks.
With each passing day and increasing escalation, the path to a lasting ceasefire is becoming uncertain. Both warring nations have reached a stalemate over their conditions for a ceasefire. From Ukraine's end, the rare earth minerals deal is at an arm's reach for US. But on Russia's front, global calls are growing for US to slap sanctions on the country, with Trump's own deadline under the lens. The question is, will the US take a tougher stance with Russia, or does Trump have other tricks up his sleeve? Let's talk to our correspondent Susan Teherani, who's now joining us live on this broadcast from New York. Susan, it's good to see you. These talks have just ended in Istanbul, and again, there's no word about peace or end to the war. What do you think the President of the United States, Donald Trump, will say? Because we anticipate that there will be a press briefing between Donald Trump and Vice President Vance.
So regarding the meeting between Vice President Vance and Donald Trump, that is a lunch. It is, as of now, closed to the press. The press pool had requested that this be open to the press. The White House so far has declined. We'll give you updates if anything changes. That's 1 p.m. local time. Right now, the main question is whether or not Donald Trump, in fact, knew about this Ukrainian attack against Russian infrastructures or not. And President Trump has been very quiet regarding that. U.S. media reports say, like CBS and others, that there has been White House officials who have set off the record that the White House was not informed of Ukraine's attacks. But nonetheless, it does come shortly after a bipartisan delegation visited Ukraine a few days ago. Senator Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal both went there, and they talked about imposing more sanctions against Russia. They talked to Ukrainian officials, including Zelensky. As you mentioned, the question now is whether or not this sanctions bill against Russia in the Senate, which has about 80 signatories, is going to be backed by President Trump, or does he have, as you said, other tricks up his sleeves? Will he be able to use this Ukrainian attack as leverage to bring Russia more fervently to the negotiating table, or is it going to, play in the hands of Russia that, the United States is not really in charge when it comes to these negotiations and talking to Ukraine? So there are a lot of floating questions. I think unless and until we hear from the president himself, these questions are going to remain.
All right, we'll have to wait and see the reactions from the United States. Like I said, the discussions are over. They've been postponed to a later date. Susan Terrani will have to leave it there. Thank you for talking to us today. And joining us now is Edward P. Joseph, who's a lecturer at the Johns Hopkins University and foreign policy analyst from Chisinau, Moldova. It's good to see you, Professor, once again. And this is a critical time. This is a crucial time for the world, both for Ukraine, for Russia, and also for the United States. Do you really think Putin is playing Trump a fool?
Eric, good to be with you from here in Chisinau, Moldova, right next to Ukraine. And actually, I was in Ukraine yesterday and only left this morning after this spectacular barrage, this spectacular surprise, very daring attack by Ukraine on multiple locations in Russia. And to answer your question, Eric, this attack prevents President Putin from trying to play Donald Trump for a fool. It complicates President Putin's strategy, this whole strategy of creating this impression. This is crucial, Eric, of Putin trying to create this impression of Russian dominance, of an inevitable Russian victory over Ukraine, and this is completely false. And we see this now in this attack. This is a severe attack, both militarily and politically. A very serious blow that Ukraine has dealt just now to Russia and to President Putin. It demonstrates the Ukrainian capacity, first, to keep secrets, to prevent Russian intelligence from knowing about such a complex operation that was reportedly planned for months. And it also shows the vulnerability of one of Russia's crucial assets, which is its long-range bombing capacity. This capacity that it's been using along with its own drones to attack Ukraine and also to attack Ukrainian civilians. In this case, Ukraine, these spectacular attack on air bases was purely against military targets. And it
Professor
also demonstrates, please.
Professor Joseph, let me come in here and ask you this, because when Ukraine attacked these Russian bombers in Siberia, there are questions of who gets the upper leverage. Is it Ukraine or Russia during the talks in Istanbul? And now the talks have concluded, but there's no way that we will ever get to know if the peace talks were discussed during the meeting. But what happens next after this? Because now we are only talking about prisoner exchanges. We are not talking about peace. So what happens next?
Eric, of course, you put your finger on the key question here. And let me say this. The word leverage is crucial that you used. And what happened with these 5 attacks that were in Siberia and other locations around Russia, this has removed that Russian leverage that you spoke about. Russia believed that it was entering into these talks with the upper hand, but that's no longer the case. So now the sides have equaled their leverage, and this presents a political problem for President Putin, because the United States now, President Trump, who has said, we will see, you heard in your package, President Trump saying, we will find out if Russia is tapping us along. You see, President Trump's eyes are now on Russia, because Ukraine has agreed to the U.S. ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to the mineral deal with the United States. Ukraine has presented constructive proposals in Istanbul to release prisoners and to release the children who've been stolen, and for an immediate ceasefire, which is what President Trump has called on and called for. And Ukraine has also said, we want direct talks at the highest level. That means a meeting between President Zelensky and President Putin. And President Trump is backing that. He's no longer saying, President Trump, that President Trump, will sort this out directly with President Putin.
Okay.
Instead, he's saying the parties need to direct themselves. So the pressure is now on Putin. And Putin, additionally, Eric, this is crucial, Putin is now under more domestic pressure because these attacks are so spectacular, so widely known, and known across Russian social media that the Kremlin cannot conceal them, cannot say, oh, this was just some small attack and we stopped it and there was not very much damage. The Russians know that, and that increases the pressure on President Putin. So he faces now increased military pressure, increased domestic pressure, and very soon, I anticipate, he will see pressure from the United States. Please.
Edward P. Joseph, thank you very much for talking to us. We'll have to leave it there.
You're welcome.